Welcome everybody. This is my second video on Shamkir 2019 tournament, Viszwanathan Memorial. So in my first video, I showed how I managed to defend against Grandmaster Viswanathan Anand and Veselin Topalov with black pieces. And now I will show you my white game against Magnus Carlsen. But before doing that, I would like to tell you a few words about the tournament. So the playing hall was very nice. There was also a nice refreshment area, and the organizers regretted neither money nor their time to make the players feel comfortable. And the hotel was also very nice. It was a 4-star hotel, but there were two minor problems. First of them was that even at the hotel reception, not everybody could speak foreign languages like English or Russian. And the second problem was that there were not enough modems for the players, at least at the beginning. There were some, but not for everybody, and I arrived relatively late, so until the round 3 I had to prepare at the corridor where there was the internet connection functioning, whereas in my room it did not work. So once I sat in a comfortable armchair in the corridor and started preparing, and Anish Giri was so nice to inform me that my preparation could be seen on the mirror behind me. Oh, well, I saw the mirror, but without realizing that there was some. So I was sort of surprised, and I'm thankful to him for informing me, because otherwise someone could spot my preparation. And I did not want to play for a draw with white pieces against Magnus Carlsen, because Viszwanathan, who was a friend of mine, and I wanted to play fighting chess in his memorial. I mean, I could probably make a draw with white pieces against Magnus. I cannot be sure, of course, but I can play solidly with white when needed. But I saw no point in making boring draws. So I wanted to play ambitious chess to please the spectators. And in my white games, it led to 1 defeat and to 1 win. Whereas if I played more solidly, perhaps it could be 4 draws and the same amount of points, but it would be much more boring. So I decided to play ambitiously. I played d4 here and knight d5 in Sveshnikov Sicilian. This line has become popular recently, and it used to be played with c4 earlier, but white did not achieve anything. And a4 is a modern way to treat this position when white wants to provoke the a7, a6 advance, after which he can transfer his knight to c4 and then perhaps push a4, a5, trying to exploit the weakness of the b6 square. I will go a bit back, and here black has 2 equally strong continuations, knight e7 and knight b8. But they are leading to completely different types of positions. While knight e7 is generally sharper, knight b8 is more solid. And now I'm showing you a line which was featured in Carlsen-Caruana match, as well as in Karyakin-Carlsen game from the penultimate round of Shamkir chess. Sergei Karyakin was half a point back, so he needed to win. He played ambitiously with white, but the position is double-edged, and Magnus Carlsen managed to avoid Sergei's preparation and outplay him in the middle game. Magnus scored a very fine victory in his game. But against me, he played knight b8 several rounds earlier. And here I played a4, bishop e7, bishop e2. And in this position, Fabiano Caruana tried both b2, b4 and bishop c1, d2. in the World Championship match. The idea behind both of those moves is to push a4, a5, which is not that great now, for after a6, white cannot play knight a3, knight e4, because it would leave the a5 pawn hanging. And white would like to play f2, f4 later on, but immediately it does not look that good, because black can play a6 and then b5. And now white cannot take on b5 because his king is vulnerable, and it allows black to win material through a little combination. When black is close to winning, his minor pieces are very active, or will become active soon. So I played king h1 to counter f5 with f4 here. But Magnus played a6 first and a5 next, which took me by surprise. I expected either f5, which is the main line, or knight c5, which Magnus later played against Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. And here, white can protect the e4 square with a bishop move somewhere, and then play rook e1, rook takes e7 sometimes. It is an important motive. But Magnus played a5, so I played f4 anyway. It is a useful move. It also allows me to secure the e3 square for my bishop, because after bishop e3, f5, black would threaten f4. So f4, f5, and here I tried to transpose into the above mentioned line, playing knight c4, when black can play like this with a move transposition. But later it transpired that knight b5 was probably more accurate, when white might continue with rook a3, hoping to transfer his rook to c3 or maybe even to the king side. So knight c4, but here Magnus played b6, which was an unpleasant surprise for me. For now, the knight on c4 is a bit exposed. Black can play bishop a6 later on. And I sank into thought now. I could exchange on e5, but black is generally comfortable here. The position might be around equal, but I would prefer black, for if we exchange all the bishops and black puts his rook on e8, he might have better chances in the ensuing endgames, for he can exploit his kingside majority, whereas white might find it difficult to do something with his queenside majority, which is half blocked. So I played rook a3, an ambitious move. I intended to meet bishop a6 with rook h3 now, when I'm already threatening something like fe5, I suppose. So if it were my move, I would have played something like this, when white can already launch an attack through queen h5. And if h6, then perhaps even bishop takes h6. It's very dangerous for black. And if black plays g6, I can first protect my knight to prepare the g2, g4 advance with nice attacking chances. Apart from that, I even considered sacrificing a piece like this. Black can take on e2 when white has two connected pawns with adequate compensation, or he can take on e5 immediately, which is rather similar, for black should not take on e5 in view of queen e2 now. A double attack. Magnus took on f4 instead. I took, and he played knight c5. And the position is about equal, but it's very sharp and it's not easy to find a way to continue. Magnus Carlsen is very good at getting his opponents out of their comfort zone. For he he is a universal player and he can play any type of position. So against strategical players, he can play sharply, while against tacticians, he can play solid chess. And against me, he chose a position which has no clear strategical content. I mean, it's not clear what to do now with white. Computer suggests rook g3 to develop some kingside offensive here. But I was not that sure about it, and I also did not consider it seriously because of knight takes a4. But then white can take on d6 and take the knight back, when white is certainly not worse and not better either. But I played rook e3 instead, missing black's reply. Magnus Carlsen played a very strong move, g7, g5 now. And now, of course, my intention had been rook takes e7 when I opted for rook e3. But here I realized that the rook had no way back. If you remember the lines with rook e1, rook takes e7, it could not happen there, for the rook could just return. So my mistake had psychological background. Computer says that white can maintain equality through rook g3 here. And now perhaps bishop e3. Even bishop d3 is an option. But okay, let's return to bishop e3. When black is a full exchange up, but several of his pawns are rather vulnerable, which gives white adequate compensation. But it's not easy to evaluate such a position properly. Rook takes e7 looks more logical, for black pawns are shattered now. But white cannot exploit it. White cannot take on b6 here. It would be good for him if black played something like queen takes b6, because now white would threaten mate. And now white can repeat moves or even go for more. It seems to me that white is possibly winning here, for black's king is very weak. Maybe not, I don't know, but it's not dangerous for white. So, but the problem is that black can take on e7 instead. When he is winning my knight, I only get about 2 pawns for it, but black remains a piece up and he can consolidate, after which his material advantage will prevail. So I played rook e6 instead, after which black took here, and it seems that white might have a nice compensation, for black's pawns are shattered and his king is exposed. But now the world champion played a strong move, bishop takes c4, which protects the dark squared pawns, and it turns out that black's king is safe once his queen enters f6. While my king is not completely safe, that's in some lines, for I might have problems with the back rank. Here I probably should have played queen d4 and queen takes b6, as Magnus Carlsen had recommended after the game. But it's not easy to go for this with such a weak back rank. For example, if black plays queen e5 and rook b8, he should probably take on b2 with his queen with advantage, even though it might allow some complications after queen takes d6. For rook takes b2 is inaccurate in view of bishop b3, when black's rook is sort of trapped. Well, white cannot win it, but it's temporarily out of play. Maybe not just temporarily. Instead, I played g4, trying to install my bishop on e6 after taking on f5 with my pawn. But unfortunately, this plan is too slow. Okay, it weakens my king, but frankly speaking, my king had not been that safe before. So I played g4, But the main problem is that now black could play rook e8 when I'm not in time to prevent his rook activation. If I take on f5 with a pawn, he has rook e3 and can follow up with queen e5 perhaps, when my king becomes really weak. I can never play bishop e6 in view of rook takes e6. But if I take with the rook, then it opens fires for black's rooks, and black should prevail, as my king is very weak. I cannot take on d6 because of some mating threats like rook f5 and rook e1 here. Magnus played queen e5, which is less accurate, for now I could consolidate. But the problem is that I cannot put bishop on e6 anyway, or black could just take it again. So I played queen f2, and here Magnus made an inaccuracy, giving check on c6. Instead, he could play rook e8, when white cannot play bishop e6 again, because he would lose a rook. It's getting boring already, I am sorry for this. So white should probably play something like bishop d3, but with a passive bishop he should be unable to hold in the long run, because black can activate his rooks sooner or later. So instead, Magnus gave a check on c6. And now I should have played king g3, when the difference is that queen c5 is no longer that dangerous for white, as white can play bishop e6 here. When rook takes e6 gives black nothing, as white can already exchange queens and recapture on e6. So black can play d5, but it's not really clear, for white can play bishop d7 and bishop e6 later on, unless black prevents it. I saw this line, but I disliked something like rook g7, but objectively white is only slightly worse in this position. I played king h3, which is not such a bad move, but Magnus reacted correctly now, admitting his inaccuracy and returning with his queen on c5. And now bishop e6 doesn't work once again for very similar reasons. But I should have tried queen d4, because I really need to put my bishop on e6, and now I could protect my rook with the king, and then finally put the bishop on e6, hoping to hold. It's not great, but it was better than the game continuation. I played king g2, after which Magnus exchanged queens. He could have done it also earlier. I was already short of time. It was move 32, and I decided to sacrifice a pawn to get some initiative, because if I take with my king, I will have to play bishop d3 and I will no longer be able to activate my bishop. Black perhaps puts his king on g7, maybe rook on h6 or elsewhere, king on f6, and then sooner or later activates his rooks and wins. So I took with the rook and sacrificed a pawn to create some counterplay. Black correctly activated his king. And now it seems that white improved his position, but in reality, in fact, it remains difficult. For if white takes on b6, black can take a pawn. And white has problems, because bishop takes f5 loses, as black's a pawn would be too quick. It's impossible to stop. So I played rook d8 instead. And here we passed the time control. And white has a pawn for an exchange, but if white plays slowly, black can cut off white's king on the back rank, and then start advancing his h-pawn, or maybe even advance his h-pawn first and then start attacking my king. And white cannot hold in the long run. That's why I decided to complicate the game by sacrificing a pawn, playing f6. Black cannot take the pawn because of bishop d7 check. So he played rook f4, king g3, rook hf2, threatening mate in 1. But now I played rook b5 check, king takes f6, bishop g4. And now black's rooks are not very mobile. He cannot release them so easily as rook f1 allows bishop e2 when the rook has to go back. And after king g7 I can give check first before collecting the a5 pawn. So black played a4, which is a correct move. Now I played c4, hoping to create some counterplay due to my passed pawn. And black played king g6. Now computer recommends bishop h5 check and bishop d1, but white's position remains very difficult and possibly lost. Black should move his rooks and attack white's king. We can see that in such a line, white's king becomes really weak and it can be attacked sometimes. It should be winning for black. I played c5, and now h5 looks like the most logical move, which it is. But I planned to take on h5 to prevent black from creating a mating attack like this. And it seems to me that I should be able to hold here. For rook f5 allows c7. And if black plays king g6, I have c7, check, rook f8, rook b8. And now white has to be careful. He cannot play king g4, for example, because there is mate in 1. And after king g2, rook f2, king g1 leads to a draw in a rook endgame, whereas king g3 loses to king g5. Black is again threatening mate in 1. And if white plays rook b5 instead, he loses because black exploits the tempo won by king g5. Now black gives one more check. The king cannot go to the third rank again. So white plays king g1 and now king h4. It is important to avoid the g4 square because then white could promote his pawn with check. But now there is no check, but there is mate on the other side of the board. So black is winning. We both saw this line, and it's the reason why Magnus did not play h5. But there is a little trick in this position. Black is still winning if he plays king h6, as computer demonstrated. Because after c7 he can give a check. Now king h4 makes no sense. And if white plays king g4, the key difference is that black's rook can return to the ace rank, stopping white's pawn winning. But we both missed that. Magnus played a3 instead, which is also winning. White has to take the pawn. If he doesn't, black can take on b2, and his a pawn is as strong as white's c pawn. We can exchange the pawns and then black wins easily. Instead, I took on a3 and now h5 followed. The point is that after bishop takes h5, black can already play rook c3 as this square is already available. Earlier the pawn stood on b2. And here black is winning easily. Rook b6, rook f6 for example. Instead I played rook b4. Now black can win in various ways, And Magnus Carlsen chose the most convincing one, rook f8. It's a pity that white cannot play c6 here. It would be so nice to have perpetual check like this, but unfortunately black can play king f5 when he is winning. Rook c4 and now rook f1, preventing rook f4 check. So I played bishop b1, bishop d1 instead, but white has problems with his king now. For example, after rook b1, king g5, black starts an attack. He can give a check and perhaps play rook c3 to control white's pawn, and then put the other rook on the second rank, which should be winning easily for him. So I played bishop f3 instead, but now black won an important tempo, giving a check. I can take neither with my king nor with my rook. So I played king g4, but now black is in time to collect a pawn. And the difference is that while black can easily stop my passed pawn with his king, I cannot do the same. You can see, I cannot take the pawn, and black just takes my bishop here, winning. So I played c6, rook c3, bishop d5, h3, king e5, rook c5. It's not the only way, but the quickest and most elegant one. And now black took on d5 when he is winning. And I resigned here, I think. For c7 loses for many reasons, queen h3 being the main one. And instead I could try king g4 and c7. And here king f6 is the simplest way to black's victory, as white cannot do anything. But even rook takes c7 is enough, and rook h7 now. Check on e4 gives the white nothing, as he needs to control the pawn. Stop the pawn. And black now simply puts his king on e3, then gives check on g7, and after king takes h2, he wins through king f2. But he should still be a bit careful, because rook c2 is surprisingly not winning. Because now white can just wait when black is unable to achieve the same position, because he can enter e3 with his king, but he cannot give check on g8 then. And if he gives the pawn back immediately, he is unable to lock my king in the corner. If he gives a check, my king just escapes. And if he plays rook g3, I don't allow his king go through f3. So it shows that one needs to be careful even in winning positions. Thank you for your attention, and see you next time. Goodbye.